Health consultation review for client 2. So, in a general review of the answers you gave to the health consultation, there are both positives and negatives to take. If we review your goals, generally we can take a very positive outcome from them. You've given yourself quite specific targets, such as losing fat around your stomach. You've specifically targeted a certain area, which will allow me to adjust the targets and fine-tune them so they're realistic and achievable for the time that we have. Improvements in diet and losing weight, perhaps by combining high-intensity interval training and a less fat-based diet, will make the goals and nutrition go in hand with each other nicely. So we can achieve your goals through changes in your nutrition and diet. This obviously means that your goal setting is a strength of yours. In relation to physical activity now then, your physical activity levels are quite poor in relation to average physical activity levels for people of your age. You don't actively participate in a lot of exercise, and you often use taxis and use your car as transport in opposition to functional exercise such as walking to work. I understand this is partly due to your tight work schedule, so perhaps a way to get around this is maybe asking for less hours at work, as it seems to be the core of a lot of your negatives from the screening. Obviously, I understand that perhaps contracts can't be changed, but if this is a possibility, then it would definitely be worth looking into. You've said you used to enjoy playing squash in the past, so perhaps we could look into getting you back into that and maybe spending time on the weekend with friends to play squash. I'd also like to increase the amount of functional exercise that you do, so perhaps walking or cycling to work as opposed to getting a taxi. And we'll look at incorporating some form of training sessions into your busy schedule, perhaps high intensity interval training, as it can be a lot less time consuming than other training methods. Nutrition is also an area that could be improved. For the most part, you eat ready meals as opposed to cooked meals, which isn't great. You also said you often skip meals, which will have a negative impact on your body. Skipping meals can lead to weight gain, which obviously counteracts your goals of weight loss. Perhaps the most negative part of your nutrition is the snacking between meals, though. I understand that this is a result of your tight schedule, meaning you can't have regular meals, but snacking can obviously lead to weight gain and tooth decay, and it will also affect your appetite when it comes to those main meals, when you actually have the time. Therefore, I'd first recommend seeing a nutritionist, as they can give you specialist advice in relation to your diet and give you the correct adjustments. But as far as the advice I can give, I suggest looking together a selection of healthy meals for you. I think we should also use your phone as a means to track what you eat and when. This could be using the health app on iPhone. It will allow me to kind of set regular times for you to eat so that you're not snacking throughout the day. Before this though, I'd like to create a food questionnaire for you to fill out. This will be a series of questions just based on the type of foods that you enjoy. And it will obviously all combine to allow us to create a plan where you are eating healthily and losing weight at a healthy rate. I'll go into more detail about the nutrition changes I want you to make later on in this review. Generally, you said your lifestyle is very stress-filled as a result of work. You sometimes smoke, which is obviously going to be very detrimental to your lung functionality and aerobic capacity. You also drink regularly, which will mean your liver isn't in its best condition. In addition to this, your sleep pattern shows you don't get the recommended 8 hours, which will negatively affect your cognitive functionality, making your decision making and general work worse, and therefore, again, creating that cycle of stress. All of these are contributing factors to your high levels of stress and perhaps your high blood pressure result. Finally, in relation to your physical health and medical history, you did say you have had back pain, and you said you thought that might be a result of your weight. I would still recommend consulting a doctor if aches persist, but if, like you've said, they have been a lot better recently, then that might not be an issue, but I would suggest consulting a doctor just to check and be sure. If we look into detail at your test results, then you have a mixture of positives and negatives. So if we look at your heart rate was 79 beats per minute. And you can see that's really close to being poor, and I would say level with poor. And that kind of correlates with your blood pressure results, so you're actually in pre-hypertension. If we look here, you've got pre-hypertension. I would suggest that this could be a result of stress. Stress can often be a contributing factor to high blood pressure. Looking back then at your BMI, you got a score of 29. So if you look here, that's in the overweight category, which again isn't great. In relation to those factors then, all of those can be aided by increasing your exercise levels, which, like I said, we will look to do, perhaps getting you playing that squash on the weekend or undergoing a training program. In relation to BMI, in addition to that, I would only suggest eating less fatty foods and less ready meals, perhaps cooking for yourself more often, cooking meals. Whilst those were negative results, there also are some positive results in your lung function. So you've got a score of 472 on the peak flow test, which actually is above average, which is really good, and actually was quite surprising to me considering you say you smoke sometimes, but I would guess that's because you don't smoke regularly, it's just on social occasions. And your waist to hip ratio was 0.82, which when you compare to normative data is actually average. You can see here that it looks like it's below average, but that's because of the small scale on the side, but you're actually average in that, which is really good again. Moving on now to how we can kind of have a positive impact on those tests and improve them and improve your general fitness and health. In relation to lifestyle then and the changes you can make there, I would suggest a change in your sleep pattern. That would probably be one of the main things that I would suggest here. So I would suggest going to bed at 10:30 each night. This is because you finish work late, so you'll need time to kind of eat and do these other suggestions that I'll make. That is why this bedtime is quite late. But I'd suggest you wake up at 6:30, which would still give you the full 8 hours that is required or recommended. And it still enables you enough time to get ready for work and have breakfast, having the same amount of sleep. And the full 8 hours will actually be much better for your cognitive functionality and will better the content and quality of your work, therefore reducing the stress of your work as you'll complete things to a better quality and more quickly. On the sciencey side of things then, more sleep will actually correlate with a lower blood pressure. This is because more sleep actually releases hormones that will prevent vasoconstriction and will actually allow vasodilation, meaning there's less pressure in the blood vessels. In relation to stress then, another thing would be using the Headspace app, which is a meditation app, and that will give you all the recommended guidelines and stuff for how often, but I would suggest doing it once a day in the evenings before bed. This should calm your thoughts about work and distract you from that stress and reduce your anxiety a little bit. It should also help with your sleep, as you'll be calmer before resting. I'd also perhaps suggest purchasing a stress ball, because as you said in the questionnaire, you're quite tight on time, and you've also said you like to use squash sometimes to release kind of that stress and release it in indirect anger and aggression on the ball. So use of a stress ball could also act as an anger and stress relief, as it'll allow you to use it on the go, both at work and at home. Finally, your alcohol is something that I feel needs to be changed in your lifestyle. You said you drink alcohol almost daily, a glass of wine at least. So I'd like you to reduce your alcohol consumption to a glass of wine every 2 days initially, and perhaps even further after a few weeks, and reduce it even more. This allows you to still drink wine, as you've said that's something that you enjoy and something that you do feel relaxes you, but also it reduces your consumption to a more tolerable amount. Any alcohol consumption will have a negative effect on the health of the liver, so the less you drink the better, but if we kind of reduce that gradually, then hopefully that will have a positive effect. In relation to nutrition then, I'd like you to do a food tracker for 2 weeks. So I'd like you to download an app. Specifically on iPhones, they have a health app. This tracks physical activity and nutrition, but the focus here is obviously nutrition. This will allow tracking of when you're eating and what you're eating, the content of what you eat. So it will show if you snack, and what on, and if you are having regular meals or not. It will kind of help me get a gauge for when you snack, what kind of tendencies you have with food and what you like. I'd also like to look at a selection of breakfasts and a selection of meals in general. So specifically breakfast, that's a really important part of your nutrition and diet for the day. It sets you up for the day. I'd like to look at least 3 outcomes or options for breakfast, so that you don't get bored or tired of eating the same thing each day. Getting you to kind of look at a selection with me and choose together kind of means that you're choosing something that you will enjoy that is also healthy. Kind of the input from both will mean that we're having healthy options that you enjoy. Finally, I'd actually like you to complete a food questionnaire. This will probably be done before the selection of breakfast and the food tracker. It'll allow you to kind of state the foods that you prefer. It'll be a series of questions that pick and choose the types of food you enjoy, so that I can adjust your diet to something that you like, which is also healthy. Like I said previously, I would obviously suggest seeing a nutritionist to get their specialist advice, but my recommendations would be a good start and allow us to intertwine the diet plan with a training plan and allow us to reach that goal of weight loss in an effective and healthy way. Cutting back on those fatty foods whilst also finding foods that you enjoy that make you look forward to eating meals regularly at those regular intervals. Lastly then, the adaptations to physical activity I'd like you to make is I'd like you to walk to work as opposed to getting a taxi to work. Your work's not that far, so it's not too much of a hassle. It'll allow functional exercise that can fit into your tight schedule. It shouldn't be too much an effect on your schedule. It'll also help burn that fat that you wanted to burn off. So this will obviously be done every working day. I'd also like you to participate in squash once a week on that free Saturday you have. This might be joining a squash club or booking a regular spot in a gym that has squash. I know the K2 in Crawley has a place where you can play squash, or Virgin Active does as well. If possible, this should be done with friends, which would encourage you obviously to participate in a sport that you enjoy, that will also help you burn off that fat that you want to burn off, but with the enjoyment of company. Finally, I'd like you to participate in HIIT training once a week. This allows for you to burn fat quickly and efficiently in that short amount of time that you have spare. you have a tight schedule that will need to combine leisure and physical activity.